I stepped out of rehab number 7 with a plastic bag of wrinkled clothes and a congratulations pamphlet that felt like mockery. The November air bit at my face as I waited on the curb, scanning the parking lot for my sister Kendra's silver SUV. 20 minutes passed, then 30. My phone buzzed with a text that made my stomach drop. "Don't come home. We're done trying. You're on your own now." I stared at those words until they blurred. 7 rehabs in 4 years. 7 times my family had promised to stand by me. I sat on the concrete bench, watching other patients reunite with families who actually wanted them. My hands shook, not from withdrawal but from something darker. Abandonment. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? My name is Miss Albright. I'm calling from Serenity Ridge Treatment Center. If you want your life back, you need to come to rehab number 8. Tonight." I laughed bitterly. "I just got out." "I know," she said. "And I know why your family doesn't want you coming home. Come tonight, and I'll show you." The driver Miss Albright sent barely spoke. He loaded my pathetic plastic bag into the trunk like he'd transported 1,000 broken people to their last chances. I watched Spokane pass by the window, every familiar street a reminder of the person I used to be before addiction swallowed everything. We arrived at Serenity Ridge just after sunset. A nurse at the front desk checked my bag without judgment, her movements practiced and kind. "We don't do shame here," she said softly, sliding a form across the counter. "We do data. We document everything. You'll understand why that matters soon." I signed the intake paperwork, still numb from Kendra's text. The nurse handed me another form, this one different. "Consent to review external records and communications. We request this for all patients whose families control their finances." My head snapped up. My family doesn't control my finances. The nurse's expression was gentle but knowing. "Let's wait for Miss Albright." Miss Albright's office smelled like lavender. She had steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain, the kind of woman who'd seen every manipulation tactic and couldn't be fooled. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Your family's involvement in your treatment has irregularities," she said, opening a thick folder. "Patterns that concern me. Tell me about Miles Sullivan." My brother-in-law, Kendra's husband, the man who always hugged too tight at family dinners and called me our family project with that condescending smile. "What about him?" She turned her computer screen toward me. "He has legal signatory authority on your bank accounts. He's listed as your financial guardian on documents from 3 previous treatment centers. Did you authorize any of this?" My mouth went dry. "No, I never signed anything like that." Miss Albright's expression hardened. "I didn't think so, because the signatures don't match." She pulled out a document from rehab number 6. "This is supposedly your consent for third-party financial control, but our handwriting analyst says it's a forgery." That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced through every family intervention, every tearful conversation about managing my money until I got stable. Miles had always been there, the voice of reason, suggesting practical solutions while I was too ashamed to question anything. The next morning, Miss Albright called me into her office again. This time, she had more documents spread across her desk. "I pulled records from all 7 of your previous treatment centers," she said. "There's a note in rehab number 6 that's particularly interesting. It says family reports patient is unsafe with money due to addiction behaviors. Recommend third-party financial control to prevent relapse triggers." She pointed to the signature line. "This signature says it's yours, but it's not, is it?" I stared at my own name written in handwriting that was almost mine but not quite. The letters were too rounded, the spacing too wide. "Someone forged my signature to take control of my money," I whispered. "Yes," Ms. Albright said, "and I think I know who. The question is, why did they need that control so badly?" Group therapy at Serenity Ridge was different from the others. The counselor, a woman named Dee, with kind eyes and zero tolerance for excuses, asked us to name one truth we'd been avoiding. When my turn came, I said something I'd never dared to say out loud. "I think my family used my addiction to steal from me." The room went silent. Then a woman across the circle named Ray whispered, "Mine did too." After group, Ray found me. "If you're serious about finding out what they did, start with your bank statements." That's where I found my truth. Look for patterns. Regular withdrawals, transfers you don't remember. That evening, I logged into my online banking. The password still worked. I started downloading statements, my hands steady now, focused by something sharper than anger. Then an alert popped up. Password reset attempted from unrecognized device. Someone was trying to lock me out. Right now. Someone who knew I was checking my accounts. I screenshot the alert and sent it to Ms. Albright. 3 days later, my mother called. Her voice carried that particular weariness I knew too well. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," she said. "We've done everything we can. You know you can't be trusted with adult responsibilities." Something in me snapped. Trusted with what, Mom? Trusted with my own bank account? My own money? Silence stretched between us. Then she spoke without thinking. "With the inheritance. With your father's life insurance policy. With everything we've been managing for." She stopped abruptly. "Dad had a life insurance policy." My voice came out sharp. "Why am I just hearing about this now?" "I misspoke. I have to go." The line went dead. I sat there, phone gripped in my hand, while my world tilted sideways. My father had died 2 years ago. I'd relapsed right before the funeral. Everyone had understood. Everyone had forgiven me for being too broken to properly grieve. Nobody had ever mentioned a life insurance policy with me as the beneficiary. Miss Albright didn't waste time. She made calls. She pulled public records. She contacted the insurance company directly, using the power of attorney I'd signed, giving Serenity Ridge legal authority to investigate on my behalf. 2 days later, she called me into her office with a printout that made the room spin. A life insurance claim filed 14 days after Dad's death. Benefit amount, $275,000. Beneficiary listed, me. Payout date, March 15th, 2 years ago. Bank routing information showed the money had been deposited into account number 447288392265. "Is that your account?" Miss Albright asked. "I don't know. I've never seen that number." She pulled up the bank's customer database. The account holders appeared on screen. Kendra Sullivan. Miles Sullivan. My sister and brother-in-law had stolen my inheritance. They'd had it for 2 years while I bounced between treatment centers, believing I had nothing, believing they were paying for my care out of the goodness of their hearts. "There's more," Ms. Albright said quietly. "Look at the transaction history." The account statements revealed a pattern. Regular withdrawals, $87.42, twice a week. Every week for 2 years. "That's not random," said Ray, who'd helped me research the merchant code in the computer lab. "That's a subscription service. We traced the merchant code. It led to a payment processor for online gambling sites. Miles, the responsible one, the church finance committee member, the man who gave speeches about fiscal responsibility and family values. He'd been gambling away my father's life insurance money, my inheritance. $9,000 in 2 years, just on these regular charges. God knew how much in the larger withdrawals. I sat there, staring at the evidence, feeling something cold and focused settle in my chest. Dee, who'd become my sponsor, found me in the common room that night. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I'm done being their victim," I said. "I'm thinking it's time they learned what happens when you underestimate someone." She smiled. "Good. But we do this smart. We document everything. You're not just getting your money back. You're destroying their entire carefully constructed lie." The plan came together over the next week. Ms. Albright coordinated with a legal aid attorney named Fiona, a sharp woman with graying temples who'd spent 20 years defending exploitation victims. "Your family made a critical mistake," Fiona said during our first meeting. "They left a paper trail. Forged signatures, unauthorized account access, life insurance fraud. This isn't just civil court territory. This is criminal." We built the case methodically. Every forged signature, every unauthorized transaction, every lie they'd told treatment centers about my instability. Fiona gathered affidavits from staff at previous facilities documenting my family's unusual behavior. Then Miss Albright got a call that changed everything. "Your family has filed a petition for guardianship," she told me. "They're claiming you're incapable of managing your own affairs due to chronic addiction and mental instability. The hearing is in 10 days. I felt rage then, but not the messy kind. This was clean, surgical. "Let them," I said. "Let them think they're winning." Fiona smiled. "When they commit to their lies under oath, we've got them for perjury too." I requested my complete bank statements going back 4 years. What arrived was a masterclass in financial manipulation. Every time I'd completed a treatment program and started getting stable, a crisis emerged. Sudden family emergencies requiring money, concerns about my behavior, pressure to enter another facility. Each intervention preceded by large withdrawals from the account holding my inheritance. $5,000 here, $12,000 there, $15,000 for the intervention specialist who transported me to Rehab 7. They manufactured your relapses, Fiona said quietly, pointing to the timeline. Look, Rehab 3, you were doing great, then suddenly they pull you out early, claiming you're not ready. 3 days later, there's a $12,000 withdrawal. What were they spending it on? She pulled up credit card statements we'd subpoenaed. Vacations, designer clothes, a boat. They were living off your inheritance while keeping you sick enough that you couldn't question it. I stared at photos of Kendra and Miles on a beach in Cancun. The trip happened the week after Dad's funeral. The week I was in Rehab 4, too broken to attend family gatherings. But I needed more than financial records. I needed them to hang themselves with their own words. Record everything, Dee advised. Every phone call, every visit. In Washington State, you only need one party's consent. That's you. My mother called again that evening. I answered on speaker with my recording app running. We're worried about you, Mom said. This new place isn't like the others. They're putting ideas in your head. Ideas like wanting to see my own bank statements? You know you're not good with money. That's why Miles has been helping. He's kept everything safe for when you're ready. Safe? Or spent? Her voice turned cold. You're being ungrateful. After everything we've sacrificed for you, do you know how much your treatment has cost us? Actually, Mom, I do know. Because I got the insurance records. Dad's policy paid for all of it. My inheritance paid for all of it. You haven't spent a dime. Silence. Then, you're confused. The addiction has affected your memory. My memory is fine. The forged signatures are what's concerning me. She hung up. But I had it all recorded. Her admission that Miles controlled my money, her gaslighting about my memory, her defensive anger when confronted. Kendra visited 3 days before the guardianship hearing. She wore designer boots I recognized from the credit card statements, $2,000, purchased with my money. She hugged me carefully, like I might contaminate her. Please don't fight the guardianship. You'll humiliate Mom, after everything she's been through with you. I pulled back. Everything she's been through? Tell me, Kendra, what has Mom been through exactly? You know what I mean. The embarrassment, the worry, the constant phone calls from treatment centers. The spending my inheritance on luxury vacations while telling me I'm too sick to manage my own life? Her expression flickered. Miles has been protecting that money for you. Protecting it or gambling it away $87 at a time? The color drained from her face. She hadn't known I knew about the gambling. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice wavered. I leaned in close. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to that guardianship hearing. You're going to testify about how unstable I am, how I can't be trusted, and then I'm going to show the judge exactly who can't be trusted. The night before the hearing, Miles made his fatal mistake. He showed up at Serenity Ridge unannounced, demanding to see me. Family emergency, he told the front desk. I need to speak with her immediately. The staff called Miss Albright, who came downstairs and told him visiting hours were over. I'm her guardian, Miles said. I have rights. Actually, Miss Albright replied calmly, you're not her guardian. You have unauthorized access to her financial accounts, which is currently under investigation, and you're trespassing. Security will escort you out. But before security arrived, Miles made the mistake of trying to intimidate me directly. I came downstairs with my phone recording in my pocket. You need to stop this nonsense, he hissed. Drop the conspiracy theories. Tell your lawyer to back off, or I'll make sure everyone knows you used again. Did I use again, Miles? Doesn't matter if you did or didn't. I'll tell the judge you did. Who's he going to believe? The addict or the family trying to help her? Probably the addict, I said, when she has recordings of you threatening her. His face went white as I pulled out my phone, still recording. The guardianship hearing was in a small courtroom that smelled like furniture polish and broken families. My family arrived dressed like they were attending church. Mom in her navy dress, Kendra in pearls, Miles in an expensive suit. They sat across the aisle, 3 feet and a galaxy away. Their attorney opened by painting me as a chronic relapse risk. 7 treatment centers proved I couldn't maintain sobriety. My history showed poor judgment and self-destructive behavior. I needed protection from my own choices. The family has managed her financial affairs for 2 years, their attorney said. They've paid for treatment. They've provided stability. They're asking for formal guardianship to continue this necessary care. Then Fiona stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce evidence that contradicts every claim the petitioners have made. She presented my treatment records from Serenity Ridge first. Perfect attendance, clean drug screens for 42 consecutive days, active participation in therapy, glowing reviews from counselors. My client is not unstable, Fiona said. She's been systematically exploited by the very people claiming to protect her. Fiona laid it out methodically. The life insurance policy with me as beneficiary, the account in Miles and Kendra's names, the $268,000 currently in that account, minus what had been gambled away or spent. Mr. Sullivan, Fiona said, can you explain why a life insurance payout meant for my client ended up in your account? Miles shifted in his seat. We were holding it in trust, for her protection. A trust requires legal documentation. Do you have trust paperwork? It was an informal arrangement. Informal? Fiona let that word hang. An informal arrangement where you spent over $60,000 of her money on personal expenses. Vacations, a boat, jewelry, gambling. She displayed the credit card statements on the courtroom screen. Every purchase highlighted. The beach vacation, the designer clothes, the boat named Second Chance that cost $18,000, and then the gambling charges. $87.42, twice a week, for 2 years. Kendra's face went pale. My mother stared at Miles like she was seeing him for the first time. Let's talk about these treatment admissions, Fiona continued. My client completed Rehab 3 successfully. She was stable, employed, attending outpatient meetings. Then suddenly, there's a family intervention. A crisis. She's admitted to Rehab 4 within 48 hours. She pulled up the bank statements on screen. 3 days before that intervention, there's a $12,000 withdrawal from her account. For what, Mr. Sullivan? Treatment costs. Treatment was covered by insurance. We have the EOB statements. Try again. Miles looked at his attorney, who had no answer. The truth is, Fiona said, every time my client got healthy enough to question what was happening to her money, the petitioners manufactured a crisis. They kept her sick. They kept her in treatment. Because as long as she was the addict, nobody questioned where her inheritance was going. The judge's expression had shifted from neutral to dangerously focused. Your Honor, Fiona said, I'd like to enter into evidence a recording made 3 days ago. She played Miles's voice. I'll tell the judge you used again. Who's he going to believe? The addict or the family trying to help her? The courtroom went silent. The judge denied the guardianship petition immediately. Then she did something I hadn't expected. I'm ordering an emergency forensic audit of all accounts connected to this case. I'm also referring this matter to the Spokane County prosecutor for investigation of possible fraud, forgery, and exploitation of a vulnerable adult. She looked directly at Miles. Mr. Sullivan, you will have no contact with the respondent. You will not access, transfer, or withdraw any funds from any account connected to her inheritance. Violation will result in immediate arrest for contempt. Outside the courtroom, my mother grabbed my arm. After everything we've done for you, I pulled away. You mean everything you've taken? For the first time in years, my hands weren't shaking. I was steady, clear, powerful. Miles's attorney tried to negotiate, but Fiona was already on the phone with the prosecutor. Criminal charges are being filed, she told me. Fraud, forgery, theft, exploitation. He's looking at real prison time. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Through the Recovery Community Network, I learned something interesting. Miles was receiving an award in 3 weeks. The Spokane Faith Community Leadership Award, given annually to a member who demonstrated exceptional stewardship and family values. The ceremony was at a charity gala. 200 people, local press coverage. The mayor would be there. I want to attend, I told Fiona. That's not a good idea. I want to tell my story, publicly. I want everyone who trusted him to know exactly who he is. Dee warned me too. Revenge isn't recovery. This isn't revenge, I said. It's accountability. He's being honored for family values while facing criminal charges for exploiting his family. Someone needs to tell the truth. Miss Albright helped me prepare. We created a presentation, nothing dramatic, just facts, bank statements, court documents, timeline of my treatment admissions versus his withdrawals, photos of purchases made with my inheritance. The gala organizers had a policy. Award recipients could invite family members to speak. Miles had listed me as family in his acceptance materials. I was entitled to speak, and I was going to take that opportunity. The night of the gala, I dressed carefully, professional, put together. Not the broken addict they expected. I looked like someone who had her life together, because I did. The venue was elegant. Chandeliers. White tablecloths. People in formal wear drinking wine and congratulating Miles on his award. He stood near the front, accepting praise, his smile confident. He hadn't seen me enter. Didn't know I was there until I approached the event coordinator. "I'm here to give a family tribute," I said. "I'm listed in the program." She checked her clipboard and nodded. "You'll speak after the award presentation. Is your presentation ready?" I held up my USB drive. "Ready." Miles spotted me then. His expression shifted from confusion to alarm. He crossed the room quickly, pulling me aside. "What are you doing here?" "I'm your sister-in-law. I'm here to honor you." I smiled. "Don't you want family here for your big moment? You need to leave. I'm scheduled to speak. It would be rude to back out now." He grabbed my arm. "I'm warning you." "You're warning me?" I pulled out my phone, still recording. "Please continue. Tell me what you'll do if I embarrass you." The award presentation went exactly as planned. The mayor praised Miles for his dedication to community service. The charity board chair talked about his years of fiscal responsibility. Photographs showed him at fundraisers, charity drives, church events. Then it was my turn to speak. I walked to the podium with my USB drive. The screen behind me lit up as I connected my laptop. "Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight," I began. "My name is Kendra's sister. 2 years ago, my father died and left me his life insurance policy. $275,000. The room went quiet. Miles's expression froze. I was in treatment for addiction at the time. I was broken, ashamed. When my family offered to help manage my finances until I got stable, I was grateful. Except I never actually agreed to that. I clicked to the next slide. The forged signature. This is supposedly my authorization for third-party financial control. But handwriting analysis proves I never signed it. My brother-in-law forged my signature to steal my inheritance. Gasps rippled through the room. "Here's where that money went." I showed the bank statements, the beach vacation, the boat, the designer purchases. And here's my favorite part. The gambling charges filled the screen. $87.42. Twice a week, for 2 years. While I was in rehab, believing I had nothing, Miles was gambling away my inheritance. But that's not the worst part. I showed the timeline. Treatment admissions versus withdrawals. Every time I got healthy, a crisis emerged. Every time I completed treatment, my family found a reason to send me back. Because as long as I was sick, nobody questioned where my father's money was going. Miles stood up, his face red. "This is slander." "It's documented evidence," I said calmly, "which was presented in court 4 days ago when Miles tried to get guardianship over me. The judge denied it. Then she referred Miles to the prosecutor for criminal charges." The room erupted. People turned to stare at Miles. The board chair stood, face white. "Miles has been charged with fraud, forgery, theft, and exploitation of a vulnerable adult," I continued. "He's facing up to 10 years in prison. The man you're honoring tonight for family values systematically destroyed his own family member to fund his gambling addiction." I looked directly at Miles. He told me nobody would believe the addict over the family, but they believed the evidence. The mayor stood and walked out. Then the board chair. Then others. Within minutes, half the room had emptied. I left the gala with my head high, but the real satisfaction came in the following days. The charity board demanded Miles's immediate resignation. The church finance committee removed him and launched an audit of all accounts he'd managed. The local news picked up the story. Community leader charged with exploiting addicted family member. Miles's mugshot ran in the newspaper. Social media erupted. His LinkedIn profile, once full of endorsements and connections, was flooded with comments before he deleted it entirely. Screenshots circulated on Facebook showing his charity posts about responsible stewardship next to headlines about his arrest. Someone created a hashtag #SecondChanceBoat, mocking his $18,000 purchase. Recovery community forums shared my story as a warning about family exploitation. The post went viral, shared thousands of times. People who'd trusted him felt betrayed. His reputation, built over decades, crumbled in 72 hours. Kendra filed for divorce 3 days after the gala. She gave a statement to investigators, cooperating fully in exchange for immunity. She admitted they'd known about the gambling, had known the interventions were excessive, had chosen to look the other way because the money made their lives comfortable. "I'm ashamed," she told the prosecutor in a recorded statement Fiona shared with me. "We kept her sick to keep ourselves comfortable." But social media wasn't done with them. Someone found Kendra's old Facebook posts, photos from the Cancun vacation, designer handbag reveals, restaurant check-ins, all time-stamped to periods when I was in treatment. The comments were brutal. "This is what stolen money looks like. She was in rehab while you were in Cancun. How does it feel to destroy your sister for a vacation?" Kendra made her social media private, but the screenshots had already spread. Her friends started unfollowing. The country club membership she'd been so proud of was quietly terminated. Her children's private school asked them to withdraw after other parents complained. Her daughter, Cassidy, found out the truth from her friends who'd seen the news coverage. She was 16. Old enough to understand that her comfortable life had been funded by her aunt's stolen inheritance. She stopped speaking to both her parents. Her son, 12-year-old Preston, searched his dad's name online and found the mugshot, the charges, the social media pile-on. He asked Kendra if it was true that Grandpa's money was supposed to go to me. When she admitted it was, he said, "So we're the bad guys?" Kendra called me sobbing about this. I felt nothing. The prosecutor offered Miles a plea deal. Plead guilty, pay full restitution, serve 30 months in prison. Miles refused. He wanted to fight. His attorney argued I was a chronic addict whose testimony couldn't be trusted, that the family had acted in good faith, that the accounting irregularities were honest mistakes. Big mistake. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented our evidence methodically, forged signatures, unauthorized accounts, the timeline of manufactured crises, my testimony about Miles's threats, the recordings. Miles's defense was simple. I was an addict who couldn't be trusted. I'd probably spent the money myself and blocked it out. I was delusional, unstable. Then Fiona called her rebuttal witnesses. Staff from 4 different treatment centers testified about Miles's unusual behavior. How he'd tried to access my medical files without authorization. How he'd pressured staff to keep me longer than medically necessary. How he'd become angry when facilities suggested I was ready for discharge. He told me explicitly, one counselor testified, that his sister-in-law couldn't handle the real world, that we needed to keep her in treatment for her own safety, but her clinical presentation didn't match his description at all. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge didn't hold back. "Mr. Sullivan, you exploited a vulnerable family member for personal gain. You forged documents. You systematically maintained her in a state of crisis to continue your theft. You threatened her when she discovered the truth. This is one of the most callous cases of family exploitation I've seen." 7 years in prison. Full restitution of $275,000 plus interest. Felony conviction that would follow him forever. But prison wasn't Miles's only punishment. His professional reputation was destroyed. The charity board published a statement condemning his actions. The church formally excommunicated him in a letter read to the congregation, a public shaming he'd never expected. His LinkedIn profile, once full of endorsements, was deleted. Kendra sold their house to pay attorney's fees. She moved into a small apartment with the kids. Her social circle, once filled with charity luncheons and country club events, evaporated overnight. "Nobody wants to be associated with us," she admitted when she came to see me 3 months after the trial. "My kids' friends' parents won't let them come over. I had to resign from the PTA. We're pariahs." She looked 10 years older, exhausted. Cassidy won't speak to me, Kendra continued, tears streaming down her face. She changed her last name legally as soon as she turned 18. She goes by Cassidy Bennett now, Mom's maiden name. She told her college application counselor that her father is in prison for elder abuse and she wants nothing to do with him. I sipped my coffee, letting her sit with that. Preston asked if he could live with you, Kendra said. He said you're the only family member who isn't a thief or a liar. But that surprised me. What did you tell him? That it wasn't my decision, that if you wanted a relationship with him, you'd reach out. She paused. Would you? He's a good kid. He didn't know what we were doing. He's ashamed of us. I thought about it. Preston had been 7 when this started. He'd had no part in their scheme. I'll think about it, I said. But Kendra, I need you to understand something. I don't owe your children a relationship just because their parents destroyed theirs. If I decide to connect with Preston, it'll be on my terms, not to make you feel better about what you did. She nodded, defeated. I know, I need you to know I'm sorry. Miles convinced me you'd never get better, that managing the money was actually helping you. By the time I realized what was really happening, I'd already lied to protect him. My mother never apologized. She maintained that they'd been trying to help, that I'd misunderstood their intentions. But 6 months after the trial, she tried one last manipulation. She posted on Facebook a long emotional letter addressed to my daughter about how addiction tears families apart, how she'd done everything she could, how she was devastated by false accusations. The post went semi-viral in our community. People who didn't know the full story commented with sympathy, "You're such a strong mother. Addiction is so hard on families, praying for healing." Then someone who'd attended the gala commented, "This is the mother of the woman whose inheritance was stolen. Her son-in-law is in prison for forging her daughter's signature and gambling away $275 of her money. This post is manipulation." The comments turned. People started posting links to the news articles. Someone shared screenshots of the court documents. My mother's post became a case study in narcissistic family dynamics. She deleted it within hours, but the screenshots lived forever. Someone created a Facebook group called Financial Abuse Support, and my mother's post became the example of what family gaslighting looks like. She never posted publicly about me again. But she sent cards, always with the same message: "When you're ready to forgive, we can be a family again." I never responded. Instead, I screenshot the cards and posted them in the support group with the caption, "This is what missing the point looks like." I completed the program at Serenity Ridge after 90 days, not because I was fixed, but because I'd learned something more valuable than sobriety. I'd learned to trust my own judgment. I moved into sober housing, got a job at a bookstore, started speaking at recovery meetings about family exploitation and financial abuse. If your family makes you feel crazy for asking questions, I told newcomers, that's when you need to ask more questions. If they say you can't be trusted with basic adult responsibilities, find out what they're hiding. One woman approached me after a meeting, young, maybe 25, with that same broken look I'd had. "My family controls all my money," she whispered. "They say it's for my own good, but I found charges I don't recognize." I gave her Fiona's card. "Document everything. You're not crazy. You're being exploited." 6 months sober, I testified at a state legislative hearing about protecting vulnerable adults in treatment. Lawmakers were crafting new regulations requiring independent oversight of financial arrangements. Families can claim to be helping, I told the committee, while actually exploiting the very person they claim to protect. Treatment centers need to verify financial authorizations. They need to look for patterns of family control that don't serve the patient's best interest. The bill passed. It included provisions requiring witnessed signatures for financial authorizations, independent verification of family claims, and mandatory reporting when staff suspected exploitation. 1 year sober, I got notification that Miles was being released early for good behavior. 30 months instead of 7 years. But 2 weeks after his release, I got a call from his parole officer. Miles had been caught at a casino using a fake ID to bypass the self-exclusion list he'd been placed on as part of his release conditions. Parole violation. back to prison for the remainder of his original sentence plus additional time. I attended his parole revocation hearing. The hearing officer asked if I wanted to make a statement. Yes, I said, standing. Miles Sullivan has shown no genuine remorse for what he did. He maintains he was helping me. He's rewritten the narrative where he's the victim. And clearly, he hasn't addressed the gambling addiction that he funded with my stolen inheritance. He's not safe to be released. The officer reviewed the evidence. Miles caught on casino surveillance, fake ID confiscated, parole officer's report of his continued minimization of his crimes. Parole is revoked, the officer ruled. Mr. Sullivan will serve the remainder of his sentence with no early release consideration. Miles's face crumbled. He looked at me with something between hatred and desperation. I felt nothing. He was irrelevant to my life now. Outside the hearing, his attorney tried to blame me. You're vindictive. You won't let him rebuild his life. He's not rebuilding, I said. He's repeating. There's a difference. 2 years sober, Preston reached out to me directly. He'd found my email through my recovery advocacy blog. I know I have no right to ask for a relationship, he wrote. I know what my parents did was unforgivable. But I wanted you to know that when I turn 18, I'm changing my name too. I don't want to be a Sullivan. And I wanted to ask if you'd be okay with me using Grandpa's last name, Bennett, so we'd have that connection. I met him for coffee. He was 14 now, taller, with my father's eyes. He'd brought copies of his report cards, his volunteer work, his plans for college. I want you to know I'm not like them, he said. I'm working part-time and putting everything in my own account that only I can access. I'm learning about financial literacy. I'm never going to use anyone the way they used you. I saw my father in him, the good parts, before the family corruption took hold. You can use the name, I said, but Preston, you don't have to prove anything to me. You're not responsible for what your parents did. I know, he said, but I want to be someone you'd be proud to be related to. We built a careful relationship, coffee every few weeks, text messages about his schoolwork. I helped him apply for scholarships so he wouldn't need Kendra's money for college. 3 years sober, I spoke at a national conference about addiction and financial exploitation. I shared the stage with policymakers and researchers. After my talk, people lined up with their own stories. Adult children who'd stolen from aging parents. Spouses who'd drained accounts while their partners were ill. Families who'd used addiction as cover for systematic theft. You gave me the courage to investigate, one woman said. I found out my son had been forging my signature for 5 years. He's being prosecuted now. That night, I called Dee. Do you ever regret going public? She asked. No, I said. I didn't destroy my family. They destroyed themselves. I just refused to keep their secrets. I built a life measured not by what I'd lost, but by what I'd protected. My sobriety, my sanity, my inheritance, my dignity. I started a blog about recovery and financial abuse. It went viral. Thousands of people shared their own stories. Support groups formed. Advocacy organizations reached out. I met someone in recovery, a teacher named Jade who'd lost everything to pills before clawing her way back to life. We understood each other's scars. We built something careful and honest. When she proposed, I said yes. 4 years sober, Miles got out of prison again. He'd served his full sentence this time, every day of it. He moved to Oregon, tried to start over with a new name and backstory, but his felony conviction followed him. Job applications flagged it. Background checks revealed it. He ended up working night shifts at a convenience store, living in a studio apartment. Nothing like the life he'd stolen from me. I heard through Kendra that he tried online dating. Every match who Googled his name found the news articles, the mugshot, the social media posts about the second chance boat. Nobody wanted to date a man who'd stolen from his addicted sister-in-law. He tried to reconnect with Cassidy and Preston. Both refused. Cassidy blocked his number. Preston sent one text. You made your choices. Live with them. Miles was alone, broke, working a job he hated. Unable to rebuild the reputation he'd spent decades creating. The image he'd cultivated, responsible, trustworthy, family-oriented, had been replaced with the truth. Gambler, forger, exploiter. That was his life now, and it would be for the rest of his life. I felt nothing about it. Not satisfaction, not pity. Nothing. He was simply irrelevant. My mother made one final attempt at reconciliation. She showed up at my wedding to Jade. Security stopped her at the entrance. She hadn't been invited. She held a card and a small wrapped gift. "Please," she begged the security guard. "I'm her mother. I just want to give her this. I want to tell her I'm sorry." Dee, who was officiating, came to handle it. "She's not ready to see you," Dee told my mother gently. "Maybe someday, but not today." "After everything I did for her," my mother started. "After everything you did to her," Dee corrected. "There's a difference. And until you understand that difference, she's not interested." My mother stood outside the venue for an hour, holding that gift, while inside I married the love of my life. She posted about it later on Facebook. "Not even invited to my own daughter's wedding. Addiction destroys families." The comments were not sympathetic. Too many people knew the truth now. Someone commented, "Your son-in-law is in prison for stealing her inheritance. You're not the victim here." She deleted the post. Then she deleted her Facebook entirely. That was the last I heard of her trying to control the narrative. 5 years sober, I graduated with a degree in counseling. Fiona came to the ceremony. Dee brought flowers. Miss Albright flew in from Seattle where she'd moved for retirement. Preston was there, now preparing for his own college applications. Jade held my hand as I accepted my diploma. I got hired at a treatment center as a peer support specialist. My job was helping new patients navigate intake, understand their rights, spot red flags in family involvement. I taught classes on financial literacy and boundary setting. I told my story in group sometimes, not for sympathy, as evidence that you can survive your family weaponizing your illness. One woman, newly admitted, asked me privately, "How did you forgive them?" "I haven't," I admitted, "but I've forgiven myself for believing their version of events. That's what matters." I built a life that Miles and Kendra and Mom couldn't touch, couldn't diminish, couldn't use for their comfort or control. Some people asked if the revenge was worth it. It wasn't revenge, I always said. It was accountability. They chose their actions. I just documented the consequences. The sweetest part wasn't destroying them. It was building something they couldn't destroy. A marriage built on honesty. A career helping others spot the abuse I'd survived. A life measured not by family approval, but by personal integrity. Preston graduated high school with honors. He'd been accepted to 3 universities with full scholarships. He asked me to attend his graduation since neither of his parents would be there. Kendra, too ashamed to show her face. Miles still in Oregon pretending to be someone else. I sat in the audience with Jade, watching this kid who'd been 7 when his parents started their scheme. Now 18, and nothing like them. He'd chosen differently. He'd learned from their mistakes instead of repeating them. In his graduation speech, he thanked the family member who showed me that integrity matters more than comfort, and that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. He didn't say my name, but everyone who knew our story understood. After the ceremony, he asked if I'd be okay with him listing me as his emergency contact for college. "You're the only family I trust," he said. I said yes. 6 years sober, I received a message from a journalist writing a book about family financial exploitation. She wanted to include my story. "You became a symbol," she told me during our interview, "of fighting back, of documentation as power, of refusing to let family loyalty become complicity in your own abuse." The book published 6 months later. My story, fully detailed with court documents, bank records, and the timeline of systematic exploitation, became a chapter titled "The Second Chance They Stole." It went viral again. New audiences discovered what had happened. The #Second Chance boat hashtag revived. Recovery communities shared it as required reading. Miles, still in Oregon, had his new identity exposed when someone recognized him from the book. His employer found out about his conviction. He was fired. He tried to sue the publisher for invasion of privacy. The case was dismissed. Public court records were public. He'd lost even the right to hide. I donated my portion of the book proceeds to a nonprofit helping exploitation victims with legal fees. 7 years sober, I stood in my living room looking at the life I'd built. Photos on the wall, me and Jade on our honeymoon, me accepting my counseling license, Preston and me at his high school graduation, Dee and me at a recovery conference, Miss Albright and Fiona at my wedding. Not a single photo included Kendra, Miles, or my mother. My chosen family. The people who'd stood by me when my blood family had failed. The doorbell rang. A delivery. I signed for a certified letter. Inside was a notice. Miles Sullivan had filed for bankruptcy. He was requesting the court reduce his restitution payments due to inability to pay. Fiona called an hour later. Saw the filing. Want me to fight it? No, I said. Let him drown in debt. It's not about the money anymore. The court denied his request anyway. Restitution for exploitation of a vulnerable adult couldn't be discharged in bankruptcy. He'd be paying it back for the rest of his life. $75 per month from his convenience store paycheck. It would take him 30 years at that rate. He was 58 now. He'd be paying until he was 88. Every month for the rest of his life, he'd be reminded of what he'd done. 8 years sober, I got a call from a hospice nurse. My mother was dying. Cancer. Stage 4. Weeks left. She's asking for you, the nurse said gently. She says she has things she needs to say. I thought about it for 3 days. Dee told me there was no wrong choice. Jade said she'd support whatever I decided. Preston said, you don't owe her a deathbed reconciliation. I decided to go. Not for her, for me. So I'd never wonder. She looked small in the hospital bed. 72 years old but looking 90. The cancer had wasted her. You came, she whispered. I came to listen, I said, not to forgive. She cried, talked about regret, about how she'd been so afraid of my addiction that she'd let Miles convince her his control was necessary, about how shame had made her defend him even when she knew something was wrong. I'm sorry, she said finally. I chose comfort over truth. I chose my pride over your well-being. I let them hurt you because admitting what was happening meant admitting I'd failed as a mother. I sat with that. The apology I'd waited years for. I accept your apology, I said. But I don't absolve you. You made choices. You lived with them. Now you're dying with them. She nodded weakly. I understand. I left without saying I loved her. Because I didn't anymore. That feeling had died years ago, somewhere between Rehab 7 and the courtroom. She died 2 days later. I didn't attend the funeral. Kendra called after Mom's funeral. She left you something in her will, she said. Her wedding ring and a letter. The letter arrived by mail. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. Inside my mother's shaky handwriting. I spent my last days thinking about what I'd say if I could do it over. I'd say, trust your daughter. Believe her. Protect her. I failed at all 3. The ring was from your father, who loved you more than anything. He'd be ashamed of what we did. He'd be proud of who you became despite us. I'm sorry I never told you that when I could still fix it. I put the ring in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd give it to Preston. Or maybe I'd just keep it as a reminder that some people only find truth when they run out of time for lies. 10 years sober, I stood at a podium at the National Addiction Recovery Conference. The keynote speaker. 2,000 people in the audience. I told my story. All of it. The abandonment text from Rehab 7, the discovery at Rehab 8, the forged signatures, the gambling addiction, the gala exposure, the trial, the ongoing consequences. My family thought my addiction made me weak, I said. They thought it made me easy to control. They were wrong. It made me careful. It taught me to document. It taught me that asking questions isn't paranoia, it's self-protection. Standing ovation. 3 minutes long. After, people approached with their own stories. A man whose wife had drained their accounts while he was in treatment. A woman whose children had stolen her disability payments. A teenager whose parents had opened credit cards in his name. You showed me it's possible to fight back, one woman said through tears. I start my forensic audit next week. That night, Jade and I walked along the waterfront. 10 years. A decade of sobriety. A lifetime away from the broken person who'd stepped out of Rehab 7 believing she deserved abandonment. Do you ever miss them? Jade asked. No, I said honestly. I miss who I thought they were. But that was always fiction. I don't miss the reality. My phone buzzed. An email. From Preston, now in his 2nd year of college. Thought you'd want to know. Dad tried to friend request me on Facebook under a fake name. I reported him for harassment. His account got banned. He'll never stop trying to rewrite history, will he? I wrote back. No, but that's his problem now, not ours. The final chapter of my revenge wasn't dramatic. It was simply this. I lived well. I built a career helping people spot the abuse I'd survived. I married someone who chose honesty over comfort. I maintained relationships with people who'd earned my trust. I set boundaries without guilt. Miles served his full sentence, got out, violated parole again with another gambling incident, and went back for a third time. At 63, he was still in prison, still broke, still alone, still paying restitution $75 at a time. Kendra worked retail now. Her kids were grown. Cassidy hadn't spoken to her in 6 years. Preston maintained minimal contact, birthday calls, nothing more. She lived in a small apartment, drove a 15-year-old car, and had a Facebook account with 32 friends. Down from 400 before the trial. My mother was dead, having lived her final years with the knowledge that she'd destroyed her relationship with her daughter for the comfort of pretending everything was fine. And me? I woke up every morning in a house I owned, next to a man who loved me, with a career that gave me purpose, with a life built on truth instead of manipulation. I won, not because I destroyed them, but because I refused to let them destroy me. That was the revenge they never saw coming. When people asked how I did it, I always gave the same answer. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And remember, family loyalty doesn't mean accepting abuse. Sometimes the greatest act of love is holding people accountable for their harm. I walked away from Rehab 7 broken and abandoned. I walked out of Rehab 8 armed with truth. And I built a life they could never touch again. This wasn't just a story. It was proof that some people don't break, they transform. More truths are coming, more twists, more stories they never thought you'd tell. So don't click away, stay close, and come back, because the next one might hit even harder.